G'day, this week's weekly roundup is pretty quiet. Now, I've had to come out to the doghouse because my better half doesn't want me to be working this week. So just a couple of things on Kickstarter this week. The Fennec is a small LoRa dev board powered from a single CR2032 coin cell battery. It runs an Atmel SAM-L MCU, which is the ultra low power series, managing to get down to 1.3 microamps. It also has a 3DOF IMU, Grove port, and a handful of GPIOs. Necessity is a mother of all invention, and no surprise that there have been dozens of projects like this one appearing with all the earthquakes, fires, cyclones, and flooding in recent years. Hopefully we'll be seeing more of these as makers start to come up with some good ideas. Surprisingly, there's not that many things on IndieGoGo this week, but there is one. What do you reckon, Mags? Back in weekly roundup number 40, we saw the Algo bricks, which raised over $1 million US. Well, now they are on IndieGoGo, with roughly the same funding behind them. With almost $3 million US in funding, there shouldn't be any problem in delivering. Let's hope they deliver. Back in weekly roundup number 37, there was the Quasar, but they are looking at launching on Crowd Supply. This is a 4G mobile module that works with Raspberry Pi or BeagleBones. This module also has onboard Bluetooth, NFC, solar LiPo charging and GPS. Rubicon is an IP67 rated expandable case that can fit Raspberry Pis down to Arduinos. The IP67 rating is a pretty decent water and dust proof standard, enough to keep most electronics comfortably dry. Looks big enough to support a solar cell as well. Here's another FPGA board. This one not only contains a Xilinx Artix 7 FPGA, but comes in mini PCIe M2 key format. It comes as two variants, the NanoEVB and the PicoEVB, with the only difference being the NanoEVB has GPIOs. Comes as open source and open hardware, so you can really do some interesting hacking. USB-C is starting to gain traction, which is a good thing. The Tiny Pat is a USB-C power adapter tester. It'll run through all the power profiles from 5 volts 3 amps to 20 volts 4 amps, testing each one and indicating a pass or fail with LEDs. This is a good thing to find out if your USB-C power adapter is actually working properly. Way back in weekly roundup number 24, we saw the LimeSDR. Now Lime Microsystems is back with the LimeSDR Mini. For more than half the price of the original, you get an Altera Max 10 FPGA and LMS7002M RF transceiver. Not only that, but the partnership that Lime has with Ubuntu means that developers can push IoT apps quickly and easily. Nice. Back in weekly roundup number 40, there was the VoltaStream Zero. Well, now there is the VoltaStream Amp 1, which is similar to the Zero, but this one has a DSP engine on board and is designed for the full form factor Pis. Seems that the Arduino guys have been watching the market and have now come out with two new boards. The MKR WAN 1300 with onboard LoRa module, running off 2 AA batteries, USB or 5 volt DC supply. And the MKR GSM 1400 with GSM module and running off LiPo, USB or 5 to 12 volt DC supply. Both boards run the SAMD21 MCUs and have an onboard RTC. Looking for some thin batteries? Yeah. PowerStream now has some ultra thin LiPos from 2mm down to 0.5mm, with the 0.5mm version being flexible. They have several different modules from 10 mAh to 2.8 amp hours. Firefly have now released the RK3399 core board. This module has similar specs to the one mentioned way back in weekly roundup number 15, with a hexa-core RK3399, 2 or 4 gig RAM, 8 to 128 gigabyte eMMC, running off a 5 volt 3 amp DC supply. The IkaScope looks pretty cool. It's a handheld wireless scope with 200 mega samples per second at 30 megahertz bandwidth, with a plus or minus 40 volt input range and a 4,000 sample point buffer. Pretty decent specs, but sadly only has 8-bit sample resolution, so will cause a bit of division with makers. They also have software support for all the OS flavors. Back in weekly roundup number 24, we saw the PocketBeagle PCB Gerbers and schematics being released. Well, now the Beagle board guys have released a smaller version of this, coming in at 56mm by 35mm. Contains all the usual goodies like LiPo battery management, PicoEVB, SD slot, but manages to break out 72 GPIO header pins. G'day chicken, how you going, chook? Meanwhile, over at the Tinny Ranch, the little arm Big from weekly roundup number 26 is now up on Tinny. This is a 6-axis 3D printed robotic arm with metal geared servos and driven from an Arduino. If you own a Pi Zero and a Rack 831 LoRa board, then this might be handy. It's a simple board allowing you to house both side by side. Another simple board, but something for your toolbox. It allows you to connect separate USB data and power lines into one USB header, useful for powering devices requiring a bit of oomph. If you want a box that allows you to easily set up a multi-protocol wireless gateway, then this will do it for you. Capable of bridging LoRa, Wi-Fi, Ethernet, 3G or 4G, running OpenWRT. This is one of the few Amiga 2 breakouts that I've seen. This one will break out at the 2mm spacing headers to a breadboard friendly 2.54mm spacing, and also has a 3.3 volt LDO on board, removing all those pesky power issues. If you want to make a simple laser engraver, then this board has everything you need, with headers for 2 Pololo stepper driver boards, an Arduino Nano header, laser header, limit switch and DC power connectors. There's also a handy Pi header. Yet another LoRa WAN board. This one has an onboard Atmega 1284P MCU and LDO for LiPo battery, but allows either an RFM95W or RN2483A module to be soldered on. We saw this one as a Kickstarter back in weekly roundup number 39, which is an ESP8266 board that also contains a LoRa module and 3 Grow ports. And one of the few boards to be running the ESP32 PicoD4 MCUs. This one has LiPo battery management, CP2102 USB bridge, and all GPIOs broken out. Nice. If you have a project needing solar power, then this board can supply a 5V 400mA and 3.3V 250mA DC supply. The state of the battery can be monitored from I2C, and there is an Arduino library being created. Note that this charger only works with solar cells pushing out less than 5V. Shush! And at the major shop fronts, they've been working like dogs. Adafruit have their take on the Fire Beetle LED display with their 6x12 RGB LED board for their feather wings. And they also have the Pi Moroni Pi Hat, which is a 256 RGB LEDs crammed into that small space and driven by an onboard STM32. Not having an on-off switch on the Pis is a bit of a pain sometimes. This PCB shim solves that by providing a micro USB port and LDOs powering the Pi directly from the GPIO header. They also have this handy button shim giving you 5 buttons running from an I2C based GPIO expander. Just plug it in and go. SparkFun have all the Amiga 2 boards in on their store now, from the Amiga 2 and Amiga 2 Plus to all the add-on and expansion boards, with a couple of new ones that weren't seen on the original Kickstarter. DF Robot have the Mixtile Gina in, which is a wearable development platform running the NRF 51822 and MT6260 MCUs, LCD and G sensor. They claim it'll run on a single battery charge for up to 5 days. DigiKey have the Altera FPGA evaluation kit in, which runs the Cyclone 10 low power FPGAs. This operates at 1 to 1.2 volt logic levels and breaks out all the GPIOs from the IC. And on the cheap side of town, there is the Wemos Lilo-Lin 32 Lite for around $5 US. The shipping alone to Down Under costs about that. These boards have a LiPo battery management, SPI flash, and come preloaded with MicroPython. Over at Banggood for around $10 US, you can pick up 10 of these charge pump regulators converting a 1.8 to 5 volt input to a 3.3 volt output. You only get 150 milliamp peak on these puppies, but they're handy to have around. And they also have this Hantec PSO 2020 USB scope. It can handle 96 megasamples per second at 20 megahertz bandwidth. Like the IkaScope, has only 8-bit resolution, but has a little more storage at 1 mega samples. Looks interesting and cheap enough for me to get one of these to check it out. And IC Station have these cheap capacitive touch switches. Pretty sure these were the ones that Peter Scargill found a while back, pretty cheap at 22 cents each. I'm starting to collect a lot of 18650 batteries now. This charger is pretty cheap and uses the TP4056 charging IC. And I wouldn't mind picking up one of these LiPo battery testers, which can simulate a linear load of up to 500 amp hours. It'll calculate the charge and discharge rates and give you an estimated capacity. So anyway, thanks for watching this week's Roundup, and I better get inside before my better half gets cranky at me. See you, Megs. Bye. There you go. So what do you reckon, Megs? Do you reckon this is a pretty good farm? Is it a pretty good farm? What do you reckon, Max? What do you reckon, Max?
What do you reckon, Max?
What do you reckon, Max? Go chase a snake! So here we go, my son is running the dogs. This is called running the dogs. It's a term in the country which means running the dogs.
Come on, mate, come here.
Go on, have a run.
Come on, do your stuff.
Get through the neighbours.
What do you think, Max? Max! You gonna have a run as well? Go and find a brownie. Go and find a brown snake.